Welcome to the show, Elle.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Awesome, no worries. I wanted to bring you on because not only you're a client of mine and you're doing really, really
Hmm.
well, but I wanted to bring you on because you have a background in mental health. And I think this is
Yeah,
such an important topic to talk about, especially for the coaches listening.
absolutely. Hmm.
I know
Yeah,
that there's a lot of insights you can share so that it will help them to better understand their clients and how they can
yeah,
help them.
definitely, definitely.
Awesome. Okay, well, the first question I had for you is what do you think is the biggest struggle that the clients themselves have with sticking to a plan that their coach creates for them?
Yeah, so there's a few things that go into this, and I think it's a really good question to ask. And I think a lot of it stems from unrealistic expectations, and that is could both be on the client's part as well as the coaches. And I think the main reason for that is when a client signs up with you and when they're inquiring with you, they are the most motivated version of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So they're seeing your posts, they're seeing your results, they're seeing perhaps your relationship that you have with your own clients, and in their head, they are like, I want this, I need this, I want to do this, whatever it takes, right? So when they're having those conversations with you about creating their plan, or when they're answering those questions, maybe in an application form, they're speaking on the highest motivated, I guess, version of themselves, and they're setting up, I guess, that unrealistic expectation from the get-go. And then as coaches, if we don't know this person, we might receive that information, have a look at it, be like, this is amazing. This person is super motivated. They're super on track. They know what they're talking about. Let's get into it. Let's write a plan. And then that plan is written is written for that person based on that really high level of motivation. So the second that kind of dies down, the client doesn't really know what to do, and they don't really know how to approach you, I guess. And there's a lot of, I don't want to say shame, but it is a lot of shame that comes with being like, hey, I actually can't do this, or I don't know how to do this, or I don't know how to make this fit my lifestyle, or this isn't working for me today like it did yesterday. I think that is probably one of the biggest points, as well as them not having the understanding behind the plan that you have created for them. So they might see a meal plan, or they might see a training program, and they're going to be like, okay, cool, this looks great. But then maybe they have a birthday dinner on, or maybe they go to make the pesto pasta that you've put on their meal plan and they don't have the pesto in the cupboard or something like that. And then things just slowly unravel from there. So I think it definitely stems from unrealistic expectations on both parts, but mostly on the client's part of viewing themselves and what they are actually capable of.
Right. Yeah, I know one of the
Yeah.
things yourself and your partner Harley do in your business is really get your clients involved in the planning of what
Yeah.
they're doing, which I think is so important.
Yeah, no, we are huge on that for this exact reason. And the conversations that we have from them are really about like, okay, great. Like if this is what you can sit through, this is fantastic. But what about those days where you've had a really long day at work, or if you've got kids, if they're not sitting down and watching TV like you expected them or wanted them to, like what are the things that you can get done no matter what? And sometimes that's not going to be going to the gym or, you know, eating specifically to the meal plan that you've created for them. Sometimes it's going to be maybe all they can drink is 2 liters of water. Maybe all they can do is get in those 5,000 steps or something like that. But I think having a non-negotiable for every single day is probably the best place to start. So you can have non-negotiables, and then you can have, if the day goes to plan, this is what we're going to get done. So we are quite big on creating the plan with them, so that even on the days where things aren't perfect, they still know what they can do, and they can still tick those things off, and they can still feel productive. Because like, as you would know, and as a lot of people listening to this would know as well, if someone is feeling productive and if they're ticking those boxes, that's going to continue, and it's going to snowball into a lot of momentum, I guess. But as soon as that's derailed a little bit, a lot of our clients do have an all or nothing mindset, and that's going to be enough to send them completely off track.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's super helpful. So in your opinion, what are some of the key factors that you must consider in order to build trust with your clients so they actually do the work, rather than it just being, here's what you should do, you know, you're on your own?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the biggest thing to understand is a client will learn and they will get things done when they feel safe and when they feel supported. So someone's not going to be able to learn, and they're not going to be able to reach out to you if you haven't created that really safe environment for them to do so. So first things first, I'd be really looking at, I guess, your setup process and the way that you're onboarding your clients, and especially that first initial communication. If that's done over an application form, you're expecting this person to write down all of these things that have happened to them in the past or their previous experiences with their health and fitness journey onto this little box on an online form. And sometimes they're not going to feel comfortable or safe enough to be able to tell you the truth. And when it comes to creating a program for your clients, it's not just about training and nutrition. It's about you're navigating through those really bad days and that mindset, and being able to overturn and rewrite and rewire their brains from their previous experiences. Like, it's not just training and nutrition. A lot of people reach out because they have really bad body image issues, or they've had a history of maybe disordered eating, or a really bad relationship with food or with exercise, or maybe they have had previous relationships where they've felt like they needed to, do so much more. And as a coach, it's really important that we know these things, and we need to set ourselves up and make sure that onboard process makes our clients feel really, really safe, so that they feel like they can share that with you. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to create that perfect plan for them.
And I think now that, a lot of people are online coaches, it can be easy to sort of just want someone to fill out an application form, and then you just do a plan for them and miss out on that full conversation that you really should be having.
Yeah, for sure. And like, the other thing is that you can be a fantastic personal trainer. You can be really, really good at correcting someone's form or at calculating their macros and their calories. But to be a coach is to combine those things with your communication skills and with your empathy and just with your people skills as well, like being able to talk to them and to understand them and where they're coming from, and to be able to direct them on these things. So I think that's definitely an important point to make as well, is that if you're a fantastic personal trainer, that doesn't always mean that you're going to be a fantastic coach from the get-go. And it's something that we need to learn, and it's something that we need to develop if we don't have those people skills or those communication skills. And if we're not very empathetic or understanding, or we're not really getting a good idea of where they've come from, it's going to be really hard to coach that person.
Yeah, that's so true. I don't think many people think about the difference between like an online trainer, I guess, and then an online coach. It's very different. I completely agree. And there's some fantastic personal trainers out there and nutritionists as well, who are just completely unaware, or they're missing that point. And that's really like what we have focused on with our business. Like, Harley, my partner, is an amazing personal trainer. He's also a teacher, and he works fantastically when it comes to explaining things to them and teaching them how to do it, and doing it in a way that they can understand. And then I bring in the other side of it, the real coaching aspect and the real empathetic and supportive. And with that mental health background, we work together really, really well. But individually, perhaps that wouldn't work for us. Or if individually, we would really need to put in that effort and that continued professional development, because it is a profession. And that's probably something that we forget as well, is that even though we're running our own businesses and we're doing these things that we're amazing at, we still need to keep leveling up, and we still need to continue learning and adjusting to the new way that this is. Like, when online coaching was first a thing, it was about writing training programs, and it was about writing meal plans and all of this stuff. But now we basically have to double up as like psychologists and therapists and teachers and all of these other things combined. So yeah, continuing to learn yourself and to educate yourself about people in general, and your clients especially, is going to be very important, and it's going to set you apart from a lot of other coaches. Yeah, and it definitely reflects. I've seen some of your clients, their feedback is just incredible. They feel like really connected with you. They can fully trust you. And so it's definitely paid off, giving them that level of support.
So many of my clients turn into really good friends for that reason. And I also would never put myself in a position where I would have too many clients that I can't sit down and have a phone call with them or a one-on-one conversation with them or meet up with them for coffee or a walk or something like that, because it's just not a part of my service that I'm willing to let go. And if I was to let that go, my service wouldn't be of quality and it wouldn't be what my clients have signed up for. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. When it comes to goal setting with your clients, what's your process, and what do you think some of the biggest mistakes are that people make when they're setting goals for health and fitness?
Yeah. So my process is very specific. I always start off everything with a phone call, usually a video call, but if my client is in my area, I will go out for coffee with them or meet up for a walk or something like that. And it's just about having a conversation with them and really understanding, like I said at the beginning, what their previous experiences are. Because if they're someone who has, you know, like really bad gym anxiety, or they went to a gym and they didn't feel supported, then you just giving them a training program and saying off you go is probably not going to be enough for them to get there and to get those results. And that's not because they're lazy or unmotivated or anything like that. It's because they're nervous, and that could just be one key factor that we're missing. And if we could just have a conversation with them and identify that, then that's going to remove that barrier entirely. So the other thing to remember is that specific answers require specific questions. So if you're trying to find out something specific about this client's previous experiences or their journey or what they're afraid of or what their biggest struggles are, you need to be asking that question. It can't just be like, what are your goals? Or what's your diet history? It needs to be, how do you rate your relationship with food? Or how long have you been training for? Or how do you rate your relationship with yourself? How do you feel when you stand on the scales? How do you feel when you look in the mirror? These sorts of things, they need to be quite specific. And for some people, they're just going to go, yeah, good, no worries, and not give you a lot of information. But not a lot of information is a good thing in that sense, because it means that you can tick that box and that person is okay with that thing. But if they hesitate and they're like, oh, you know, it's a bit of a struggle, then you know to unpack that a little bit further. So these things you can still do on an online form, but just make sure they're asking specific questions. And if you notice in those answers that client is maybe, you know, not like dodging the question entirely, or maybe they've given you a little bit of a, oh, like, yeah, I haven't had a really good experience with this, then I think that would definitely warrant an extra conversation with them about that. In terms of setting specific goals, I think the number one thing to focus on as well is that we need to be setting behavior and habit goals, not outcome goals. So a client might say to you in their online form, or however this process is for you, they might say, I want to lose weight. And that's great. And that's usually what everybody's goal is at the beginning, because they haven't had the chance to think about that and you haven't asked them a question that's specific enough. So instead of someone saying to you, I want to lose 1 kilo every week, for someone who is like 30, 40 kilos overweight, that might be possible at the beginning. But the thing is with that is that someone can do everything right. They can stick to their entire program. They can stick to their meal plan to an absolute T, but maybe they have a fluctuation the day that they weigh themselves and they've only lost 800 grams instead of 1 kilo. If that's the only goal that we have set for them, that's potentially going to be enough to derail them altogether. And they're going to think, I've done everything right, it's not working, what am I doing wrong? And they're probably going to give up. So the other thing is that we know that our clients sometimes can be very all or nothing. So if you were to give them, say, a calorie target of maybe like 1,800, they might look at that and go, holy hell no, that's way too high. Like I've read Instagram posts, I've been following people, I know that I need to be on 1,200 calories. If I'm not on that, then what's the point? Like I need to do this. But when you go back and you have a look at their eating history and what they normally eat in a day, if they're sitting at around 2,500 calories, and going to 1,800 is still a 700 calorie drop. So explaining to them the reasoning behind what you're doing is very important. Otherwise, they could go read that completely stressed out and then not start it at all. So if someone isn't going to the gym at all, they can't go from 0 to 5 straight away. And they might be able to do that and maintain that for a week or for 2 weeks, but their body's going to be very sore. They're going to feel like they don't want to go. It's going to be a chore. So starting them at 2 or at 3 is perfect. If they're saying to you that's not enough, then that's how you know that that's where you need to start. Because if they can tick off 2 or 3 every single week, they're feeling productive, they're feeling like they can do more, great, you add another day, you take that 3 to 4, and then you continue to watch them tick that off, and then you can take that 4 to 5. So it's the same for everything. It's the same for steps, and it's the same for water. People have in their head that they need to drink 5 litres of water a day and they need to do 10,000 steps every day. So for someone who works at an office job in the aircon, they're probably only drinking 1 litre of water a day, and they're probably only moving 2,000 steps. So I guess meeting them in the middle and being like, okay, I hear you. This is great. This is what you want to do. But how about we start here first? Get that 1 litre to 1.5 litres. Get that 2,000 steps to 3,000 steps. And once they're doing that consistently, you can take the 3,000 to 4,000, and you can take the 1.5 litres of water to 2 litres of water. So just making sure that the goals that you're setting your clients are things that they are in full control over. You can't control how much weight you lose on the scales, but you can control the water that you drink, and you can control the steps that you take as well throughout the day. So yeah, making sure those goals are based on their habits and their behaviors rather than their outcomes is very important. And like I mentioned at the beginning, making sure that they have those non-negotiables for every day. So someone might tell you that they have the day off and they've got time to go to the gym and they've got time to do steps and they've got time to get their water in. So an ideal plan for that might be, okay, you've got the time, so let's maybe aim for 5,000 steps and 3 litres of water in a gym session. But then maybe on that day their car breaks down, or we go into lockdown and the gym's not open, or something like that, that they can still control these things over here. So they can still definitely do the 2 litres of water. They can still do the 4,000 steps. Do you know what I mean? Like having the non-negotiables and then having the ideal, so that even if the ideal doesn't go to plan, they can still fall back on those non-negotiables. They can still tick those things off that list, and they can still feel productive. And that's going to stop them from unraveling and going off track completely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. That's really, really helpful. And you can, if you're using an app like Trainerize or True Coach or any of those apps, they have those habit trackers in them. So you can utilize that, instead of having to...
that's what I use for my clients as well, is those things. And we put in things that aren't just health and fitness related. Like one of my clients, for example, is at uni, and he really struggles with getting his study in because he's obsessed with the gym. So in this situation, it's not the gym that we have to focus on getting him to, it's the study or it's the reading the book. So in his app, he actually has do 30 minutes of study and read a chapter of the book and that sort of thing, rather than focusing on the gym, because the gym is something he's going to get done no matter what. And the thing that's letting him down in an entire sense is the uni work and that sort of thing. And that's what's making him stressed, not worrying about going to the gym or hitting his food, but about uni. So that's the thing that we're focusing on. And that's, as a coach as well, you need to be looking at the bigger picture as well, not just their training and their nutrition, but their overall quality of life and managing their stress levels, which can come from anywhere.
Oh, I love that. I don't think many people think about the stress levels. I don't think it's really their responsibility. But if you can help with that, that's awesome. That's so good that you include that.
It's just another thing that you can add to your service.
Okay, so with your background in mental health, that would surely play a big role, like as we've just talked about. What are some of the key things that coaches that are listening should be looking out for in their clients' behaviour or even application forms? And what's an appropriate response to someone struggling with a mental health issue? Say you're already working with them, something's come up, they're really struggling. How do you respond to that as a coach?
So again, this takes me back to the continued professional development. And you might think that, like you just said, it's out of your scope and it's not your responsibility, and you're 100% right. But if you have a client, in my opinion, it is your responsibility to be able to have the knowledge and the information behind you to be able to refer on. You're not a registered psychologist, you're not a therapist, you're not a counsellor, and no one expects you to be. But to be able to look after your client and to be able to not just get them their physical results, but help with their quality of life and help with managing their stress levels, things that in turn can help them get those results that they've signed up with you for, it's important to have that knowledge behind you. And I think that we do put a lot of focus on strength and conditioning and calculating calories and those sorts of things, which is important. But when you're coaching a person, their physical health is impacted so heavily by their mental health. So I think that this is something that we should be investing in the sense of perhaps doing some short courses or even listening to audiobooks or something like that. I do have a background in mental health. I do work in mental health, especially like in young people with our youth. Mm-hmm. But the thing that has helped me the most, and the thing that I have recommended to my friends who are also coaches, is to do a mental health first aid course. It's not very expensive. It's a couple of $100s, and it doesn't qualify you to deal with those issues, but it qualifies you to understand and to notice them and to pick up on the little behaviors and the little things so that you can identify in your head what that is. You don't need to diagnose them. You're not qualified to diagnose them, but to be able to understand them and to be able to see and notice those little signs developing as you're working with a client, you're going to know who to refer to. Usually, if you don't have that knowledge and you can just kind of go by your gut instinct, if your client is saying to you like, hey, like my mum's birthday dinner's on Friday, but I'm not going because I want to track my macros. Initially, that could be like, oh, great. Like you're so on track. Like you're so motivated. I love that. But when you think about it a little bit more and you think about that client's quality of life, in 20 years' time, they're not going to be looking back at that day and going, thank God I didn't go over my carbs that day. They're going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe I missed out on my mum's birthday and seeing my family and, enjoying that moment because I was so worried about going over my carbs that day. So noticing things like that and noticing their stress levels when they can't be perfect. So if they have no choice but to miss the gym, or if they have no choice but, it's bucketing down rain, they can't get their steps in and they're stressing over that, that to me is a big sign that something's not right with their mindset. So automatically, if that's one of my clients, that's a straight up conversation. Like, all right, let's chat about this. What's going on? Like, what's the thought process behind this? Like, what's the worst thing that can happen if you don't get your steps in today? Like, what is it that is stressing you out about this? Let's chat about that. And I guess for me, I have a lot of experience in this area, but for a lot of other coaches who don't, if you're unsure, refer on always. Mm-hmm. And that's just to their GP, and they can go and they can talk to their GP and they can get a mental health care plan, and they can get like 10 free psychologist sessions. And I'm pretty sure that as of this year or as of last year, if that's eating related, if that's related to their food or their relationship with food, any disordered eating behaviors, I'm pretty sure that that is now 20 free or subsidized sessions with a psychologist if they go to their GP. So that's something to be aware of as well. But if you're not sure, always refer on, always encourage that they go and at least have a conversation with their GP or with a psychologist if they have one. And this is always a question that I ask in my onboarding process as well, is not just physically and dietary requirements, but how's your mental health? Do you have any history with depression or with anxiety or with disordered eating or anything like that? Because it all relates, it all ties into one, and that's going to help you. Having that prior knowledge of your client is going to help you to be able to pick up on these things when they show up in your check-ins or in your calls or in your conversations. If you know that they have a history with disordered eating and then they're telling you that they're going to skip their mum's birthday dinner, you know straight away that that's a sign that things aren't going okay and that we should probably intervene here. It might not be full-on eating disorder, but it could potentially get there if we don't intervene. So I would highly, highly recommend doing a mental health first aid course, just because it helps you to identify those signs really early, and it helps you to know what it is, how they're feeling. It gives you all of the information about like the signs and the symptoms, but also how they feel and the way that they talk and the way that they act. So you're not just trying to look at it from like a clinical point of view, you're also understanding things in the way that they feel. Like, oh, I feel anxious when I'm at the gym, or I feel anxious when I'm grocery shopping, or things like that are listed in this mental health first aid course, so that that can go off in your brain and you're like, okay, that's a sign of this. I'm going to keep an eye on this. And then you can be extra vigilant or diligent, whatever that word is, with identifying those things and then referring them on. So I think that that is incredibly important, and that's something that I will always continue to refresh. Even if I wasn't a coach, I still would, because just talking to people and talking to your friends and talking to the people that you care about, you want to be able to identify these things. So invaluable, in my opinion. Yeah,
that's so important too. And I think because you know, it can be hard to work out what's actually going on if, say, a client is just becoming slack or whether they're actually having an issue. So it sounds like doing a course like that can really help you to identify how to respond.
Yeah, definitely. And even if it's not like sure signs of it, if you can just see the little things, you know that that's going to flag in your brain straight away as, okay, I know that that is a symptom of depression. Let me keep an eye on it. I'll check in with her again tomorrow, see how we're going. If I identify another one of these things, I'm definitely going to suggest that they refer on, and make sure that you have like, support hotlines and stuff like that. Like I have a list of those readily available, things like Beyond Blue and the Butterfly Foundation, which works with eating disorders, and things like that are really important to have on hand so that you can automatically say to someone, if you're on a call with them, you can say, I actually know of a place that helps with this. You can chat to them online, or you can ring them, or you can text them. And if you're interested, here it is. So just being able to provide that information, you don't need to diagnose, and you don't need to be their counselor and their therapist. You can just be their personal trainer or their nutritionist or their coach. But being able to identify those things is going to make your relationship with them a lot better as well. They're going to feel a lot more trusted and a lot more supported if they know that they can talk to you about this stuff, and that you know that you can identify that. You're going to feel a lot more comfortable having them as a client. So, yeah.
Right. And would you continue working with them, but just alter the way you're coaching them?
It depends what it is. So I have a client at the moment who has told me that tracking her food is becoming really triggering for her, and she's finding that she is being really meticulous with it. And if she goes over her calories, and she just won't eat, even if it's 12 p.m. Like, she's way too stressed about going over. So all of a sudden, the first thing straight away, she didn't even say that to me as like a serious conversation. It was just oh yeah, no, I don't go over my calories, even if it's 12 p.m. I'm kind of, that in my mind straight away flags something. And I'm like, okay, let's have a conversation about this. So all of a sudden on her app, her targets have been removed, and I just added to the habits and the goals section. We're going to aim for 5 serves of veggies today. We're going to aim for 2 serves of fruit today, and we're going to eat when we're hungry, or we're going to, focus on protein, or little things like that, little hints and cues, so that she's not focusing on the calorie content. She needs to get back in to line with her hunger cues. And that's something that really goes out the window when our clients are tracking their food, if they're being really meticulous. The reason that I use it isn't for a being perfect purpose. It's so that my clients get a bigger understanding of what's in their food, and they can compare their products, and they can do all of these things. That's why I use it. But I will never, ever use that if that is going to be deteriorating their mental health or their relationship with food. Like, to me, that is not worth it at all. So that's something that I've removed straight away. And already she's improved significantly. She wasn't at the point where she was had an eating disorder, but just those little behaviors, if we can intervene because we've noticed them, and we can make those changes, and we can take the focus off weighing and hitting things to the gram, and put that focus back on eating for health, and eating because we're hungry, and eating enough carbs before we train, and making sure that we're having enough protein so that we recover. That to me is actually more valuable than hitting your macros to the gram anyway. So yeah, noticing little things like that is important. It depends what it is, but if you're not comfortable or you actually don't know, then definitely just refer on and tell them that if they're speaking to their GP, to bring up your service. And this is what I'm doing with my coach, and this is what we're focusing on at the moment. Do you think that this is impacting my mental health, or do you think that this is healthy for me to continue? And that GP or that psychologist is more than likely to give some ideas or some kind of tips and tricks about how we can navigate through that. Obviously, if you aren't comfortable doing that, you can word that in a way where you're like, hey, I really want to make sure that you're okay. Can you please have this conversation with your GP, and can you please start seeing a psychologist, and let me know how you go. And if you have any ideas, or if they come up with anything, or, when you're ready, let me know, get back to me, and let's go through it again. But there's lots of ways that you can word it, but just make sure that you are comfortable in that client coaching relationship. You need to feel just as comfortable and just as confident as your client does. So if there's something that you're unsure of, definitely refer on, and don't be afraid to say to them, hey, this is actually out of my scope, and I really want you to get the best help and the best support that you possibly can. And I don't think I can provide that for you at this stage because I don't have enough knowledge in the area, but please keep me updated and please let me know how you go and how you progress and how your journey is going, because I'd love to keep up to date with it. So these are things that I say to people, not really in the mental health realm because I know how to handle that, but for specific conditions that involve I would suggest my client would see a dietitian instead or something like that. So something that could potentially be a little bit heavier, like if they have a specific condition or something that I'm not qualified working on. The way that I've always worded that is, hey, I would love to work with you, but I just want to make sure that you are getting the most valuable service and the best support that you can. Here is someone that I recommend. They're amazing. They work the same way that I do, but they also have, a master's in dietetics and they have information around this and they have experience on this. And I think that you will work really well with them, but please do keep me updated. So that's usually how I approach those things. And I think that that is probably the best and the most professional and the most friendly way to do it, so that you know that you do care about them and you're not shafting them off to someone else. You just want them to get the best care. And don't be afraid about, losing business or anything from that, because if anything, that just makes that person trust you more because you have put their needs before your own financial needs. So yeah, don't be afraid to refer on, no matter who it is, no matter what it is for, and get a team. Sorry, I know I'm rambling, but get a team or a few practitioners that you know and you trust in your circle. I have a dietitian that I recommend people to, and I do have a list of specific psychologists that I can refer people to based on if it's eating psychology or if it is specifically around anxiety or depression. I have some ideas there so that I can hand those out if I need to.
Yeah, awesome. That's really, really helpful, especially, like what you just said, having those people that you trust on hand that you can handle people off to. That's really cool. Yeah. And I like what you said about not worrying about losing a client because you're referring them on, because like you said, just going to build that trust and they can always come back to you in a much better place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say, is they will come back to you if they get whatever it is sorted out, or they have a plan in place to manage that. If they can share that with you and they want to come back to you, which they will because they already trust you because you've put their needs before your own, then you're definitely not losing a client, because they're also going to recommend you to other people as well. They're going to be like, I inquired with them. They couldn't take me on because, they wanted me to have the best support. So I needed to go to this person, but they would be great for you. And then they can talk about that with their friends, and they are basically just advertising your business for you as well. So it definitely pays to be genuine and to stay within your scope.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are 3 to 5 steps coaches can take to start to improve their goal setting and creating plans for their clients based on everything we talked about today?
So the first one that I probably would suggest is, like I mentioned at the beginning, just ensuring that your onboarding process and your setup process is really specific. So you have those specific questions there, and it gives your clients the opportunity to know you and to trust you. So even if it's just, an application form and you're not really asking those heavy questions, but you're asking the basic questions like, how do you rate your relationship with the scales? How do you rate your relationship with yourself? Those sorts of things they can just give a basic number on. If you see that is like a 0 out of 10 or a 1 out of 10, that hasn't required a whole lot of confiding or confessing on their end. They haven't needed to put a whole lot of information in there. But if you're noticing those things, perhaps setting up a call with them and having a conversation with them about how to navigate through that, that's going to build that trust. It's going to build that really supportive relationship, and then they're going to confide in you more, and you can come up with some really solid, specific goals that suit them. So that would be the first thing that I would recommend, is having that onboard process where you have the specific questions. And if you notice that the answers that you got might be a little bit alarming or concerning, having another thing where you can maybe set up a call with them or have a proper one-on-one conversation with them from there. Number 2 would be, if you do have to set up that call or you do need to have that conversation, make sure that you have specific questions that you can ask. Like I said at the beginning, specific answers require specific questions. So making sure that you're being really honest with them about like, hey, you sound so motivated. This is amazing. Like, I think we're going to see some really great results, but let's chat about those days that don't go to plan. What are the things that we can do during these days, and how can we set this up so that you can achieve this no matter what and feel productive no matter what. I had a session with a new client yesterday, and we had this conversation, and she kind of looked a little bit disappointed because she was like, she even said to me like, oh, like, it doesn't sound like enough. Like, this doesn't sound like enough. But she had come to me after trying for 15 years of ongoing dieting, going off track, dieting, going off track, dieting, going off track. So when we set these goals, she was like, that's not enough. And I was like, good. I'm glad that that's not enough, because that means that you can tick these things off. You can feel productive. We can get that momentum going, and then we can add more. So don't be afraid to start really small, even if it sounds stupidly small. Just make sure that you're explaining to them the reason behind that and what your long-term plan is, so that they're on board and they understand what you're doing, and they can even predict the own changes that they're going to make. Like, I know that if I can drink 1.5 liters of water every day, that next week it's going to go up to 2 liters. Like, I know where this is going. I know where this is heading. So don't be afraid to give them the plan as well, and to explain the plan to them. Once again, you're not going to lose a client because you're being too honest. Like, I've had this question quite a few times from coaches who have said to me, like, why do you teach your clients how to calculate their own macros? Like, that's what they're paying you for. But they're not paying me for that. Like, you can do that online. There's a calculator online. Like, it's about building that relationship and setting those expectations, because you want your client to have this in their little toolbox for the rest of their lives. Because if that's what they can do, they might not be paying you anymore, but because you've given them that knowledge, they're going to be recommending you to absolutely everybody for as long as they live, if you can give them those long-lasting tools. So don't be afraid to explain everything to them, and to really teach them and to work with them one-on-one to create their own goals, instead of you just giving it to them, because then they know what's expected and they know what's coming and they can prepare for it, and nothing's a surprise. So I hope that's specific enough as like a plan, a point or a tip. But that would definitely be the second one, is make sure you're specific and make sure you have an explanation behind everything that you do. The next one is I would probably just say, like, to reflect on that regularly. So talking to your clients about their small daily goals, and how was this? Was this too easy? Should we add another one, or was it too difficult? Should we go from 5,000 steps back to 4,000 and see how we go? So adjusting and reflecting on that, and making sure that your client understands that even if they have had a bad week, that doesn't mean that they need to skip their check-in. That means that they need that check-in more than ever, because something needs to be adjusted. So you're not there to judge them. You're not there to criticize them, and just make sure that they really, really, really know that, and they really understand where you're coming from. This is the same, once again, the exact same thing that I had yesterday afternoon. Yesterday afternoon, I had a check-in call with a client, and she hadn't spoken to me for like 4 weeks. Like, she'd been dodging my messages and my calls and all of these things. And when I spoke to her, she was like, oh, I need to have surgery on my leg, and I haven't been training, and I just didn't really know like what to do or what to say, and blah, blah, blah. And I have to drive an hour and a half to and from work, and by the time I get home, it's dark, and I just want to go to bed. And so I just haven't been doing anything. And that's the reason that she was like avoiding a check-in. And I was just like, one, horrified, because like, talk to me about it and let's come up with a plan. Like, that's not your fault that you hurt yourself. Like, let's plan something else. So the plan that we then came up with was, after work, you could maybe like, because she drops her dog off to her parents' house, which is near where she works. So why don't you just go back to your parents' house, grab your dog, go for a walk around the block while it's still light? That's something that you can do. And then when you're driving home, instead of thinking about how much you really don't want to train when you get home, you can be thinking about how you've done it. You've accomplished something. You've gone for a walk. You're going to go home. You're going to have dinner, and you're going to go to bed, and you're not going to feel guilty, or you're not going to feel like you failed, because you've still ticked that box that we've set. So goals are going to change all of the time. So you need to be reflecting on them constantly and consistently, and checking in on your clients. If you're someone who has a lot of clients, this might be hard, but if that's the case, then I would say that you shouldn't have that many clients if you really want to have that relationship with them, you need to make sure that you can touch base with them at least a couple of times a week and see how they're going, reflect on how those goals are, just like you do with your clients as well. This is important not just for, you know, the health and fitness industry, but anything. If you're helping someone trying to achieve anything, we need to make sure that those goals are realistic and that they're fitting with someone's day-to-day life, which then once again takes me back to the two columns of non-negotiable and ideal. But yeah, they're probably the three that I would say, is that your setup process is good and it's asking specific questions. You have your habit-related goals, not your progress-related goals. And then number 3 is that you're reflecting and you're changing them every single day or every couple of days based on how your client's day is going or how their week is going.
Wow, yeah, those 3 are so helpful. I definitely love having the non-negotiables. What was it? Sorry, the 2 different.
We have the non-negotiables, and then we have the if things go to plan. Like, if it goes to plan, that. This is what we're doing. If not, we at least do this. And then at least, like, I don't know, it must be like a psychological thing, but if we're ticking boxes, we're feeling good. One of my clients who like used to have make my bed in her habit. On the app, it used to say make your bed, and she would tick that off because that was the thing for her, was like, if I make my bed, I have a productive day. Like, I don't know how or why, but I just do. So all of a sudden that was in the habit thing in the app, and she needed to tick that off every day, and then from there it just kind of keeps going. So yeah, don't be afraid to kind of take it out of just the health and fitness specific ones, because you're dealing with someone's life. Like, you're not just dealing with their nutrition and their training, you're dealing with their mental health and the way that they see themselves and how productive they are, and do they have enough energy to get through work, and do they have enough energy to get home and to cook dinner for their kids, and do they have enough energy to run around with their kids, and all of these sorts of things that it comes down to. So just have a think about the bigger picture.
Yeah, I love that. It's all interconnects as well. So
it definitely does.
Awesome. All right, Elle, where can the audience find you online?
So my Instagram is probably the best and the only place that I am like posting frequently. So it's Sugden, so SUGDEN.impact is my business Instagram page where I post a lot of stuff. And like, if anyone is listening to this and you have any further questions, then feel free to reach out to me. I'm very active on there and always very happy to help out. So yeah, that's where you can find me. That's where I am all the time. So feel free to come on board and chat, I guess.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. This has been really helpful.
Worries. Yeah, it's been really good to be able to like explain things and like remind myself of things as well, of like things that I maybe forgot or like could be using for other clients that I haven't really thought of. So yeah, it's been really fun. Thank you so much for inviting me on here, I guess, and letting me talk about all of this.
No problem. Thanks again for your time.